The colonizers are still in Africa. They haven't left. So for over 60 years, we got our independence, different countries. Our only option were the former colonizers, were the West. So it was refreshing to see China coming in and giving us an option. It's actually refreshing to see other countries coming in and giving us an option. So we don't have to be stuck with the former colonizers as the only option. So yes, China was welcome. The only problem is the manner in which China came by insisting on bringing their own employees. But even then, I will say I can let it go because we need to own that responsibility. We should have negotiated better. We should have told China, if you bring in 50 people, then the other 50, if job needs 100 people, 50 should be yours, the other 50 are local, and you got to train the local people. We failed to do better negotiations. But I can tell you, since the last meeting the heads of states had with the president of China in 2018, a lot of that has changed. A lot of bad contracts that China had been involved with various countries have been cancelled. So the heads of state are realizing that, and they are addressing that issue. So I think as far as trading with China, that situation is being addressed and things are getting better. The problem is now with the individual citizens. They are the ones who are just downright racist. Even on the continent, they are abusing the Africans on our own continent. And then, of course, what's happening or in China itself, they just have no respect for Black people. They are racist to the core, some of them. Not all of them, don't get me wrong. Many of them are good people, but we have a significant percentage that are just racist. So if they don't like Africans, then maybe they just need to get out of Africa as well. It's really that simple. I know I heard of Bobby Wine planning on airlifting Africans out of China. Well, my position is if African leaders have to airlift their people out of China, then President Xi Jinping needs to start looking at airlifting his own people out of Africa. But what I do know is we're not taking any abuse anymore from anybody, period. Well, again, you have to realize that and say the West. Let's talk about the main colonizers. We got France, we got Britain, we got Germany, we got Portugal, and some Italian. But at the end of the day, we were divided up into these tiny little countries. Each country has to wage its own battle against the colonizers. So even though the enemy is a common enemy, which is France, Cote d'Ivoire has to fight as Cote d'Ivoire. DRC has to fight as DRC. Senegal has to fight as Senegal. If they were all to come together and speak one voice, they become a bigger voice that can then take a position and say enough is enough. Which is why I go back and say the African Continental Free Trade Area is really the answer to Africa's problems when we can speak with one voice.
Absolutely.
But as individual African countries will never succeed. Of states, it's up to the leaders to decide whether they want to have regional governance. But I can tell you, just based on the efforts to try implement the African Continental Free Trade Area, conversations, governance structures similar to what you're describing, maybe a while away from now. I think we should concentrate on the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. That's a good step in the right direction. And then other conversations might take place. For example, we need to have a single African army. We need a single African currency. We need a single African monetary policy. We need our own financial institutions at a continental level, like the African Stock Exchange. All those things need to be addressed. And until we can achieve some of that integration at that level, it's a difficult conversation. Keep in mind, it took us from 1963 to 2018 for us to have the heads of states come up with the decision, which is now the African Continental Free Trade Area, where they have agreed that Africa needs to enter the world market as one customs union. It took us 56 years to get this decision. So you can imagine going back again and trying to start with yet another one. I don't know how long it's going to take us, but I'm hoping that we can all wake up enough and realize that we're still suffering from the legacy of slavery and the legacy of colonization. Because if the truth be told, there are representatives from various governments who are participating in these conversations, and they need to stand up. They need to push back and just tell these colonizers the truth. They are abusing us. They are spitting in our faces. They are beating us up. They are burning us. And we're supposed to be nice. And how long do they need to continue to beat us up before we all come together and say enough is enough? I'm hoping that we are getting to where the average Black person is simply sick and tired of being sick and tired. We can't continue to take this abuse. And they, the colonizers, they know it. They know that they're abusing. That's the sad part. They know they're abusing us, and we need to tell them to stop. That's just all there is to it. They need to stop abusing Africa. They need to stop exploiting Africa.